Hi guys, hope you're all doing well. In this video we're going to be looking at the right strategy for charging your Porsche Taycan. And there's three main areas you need to consider here. The first of which is the strategy for protecting your battery. The second of which is the strategy for protecting your wallet. And the third of which is the strategy for protecting the sanity of other EV drivers on our rather limited UK charging network. Now, this could well apply to other EVs as well that you rapid charge. I'm not talking about AC charging here. We're going to be looking purely at DC charging, rapid charging, and some really important things to consider to get the best out of your Taycan and your sanity. Now, these days, even manufacturers of mobile phones have an option on them to limit the amount of charge we can pump into them. So the first thing we're going to be looking at here is number one, and that is the strategy for protecting your battery. So the right strategy for looking after your battery. Now, there's a lot of conversation around this, a lot of opinion, a lot of discussions. Some people are quite into it, and some people just don't care. They plug their car in when it needs charged and be done with it. That's fine. Why not? Life's quite short, isn't it, to worry about these kind of things. But if you have an EV that you're looking to invest in or you want to hold on to for some time and you want to get the best out of it, you're going to want to think about managing that charge as best you can, managing the state of charge of the battery as best you can to preserve the longevity of the battery. Because as we know, if you should ever be in the horrible predicament where you have to replace an EV battery, you are looking at significant outlay. It's not something I want to have to get to, that's for sure. I think I'd get quite, I guess, kind of concerned, you know. It'd be something like, oh, I've got to pay this much money just so I can continue to use my car. And we're talking tens of thousands of pounds, right? You know, we're talking new engine money. And it's something that every EV will eventually get to, right? Whereas an ICE car might not necessarily get there. Every EV will at some point be in a situation where the battery needs to be replaced, right? So the guidance for the Taycan is to run your battery between a state of charge at the lower end of about 25 to 35% and at the top end 85%. No more than that. You should be setting limiters to your AC charging on profiles, which I've covered in other videos, to ensure that you're not going above that consistently. Now, if you need to charge to 100 for a long journey, that's absolutely fine. But what is the science behind this? Well, with lithium-ion batteries, NMC as they are in this car, but with all lithium-ion batteries, the more you push in to the state of charge at the top end, so when you get to sort of 90, 95, 100%, you really have to squeeze those electrons in, and the reaction, the chemical reaction that is taking place really slows down and it generates a lot more heat. And that is why you cause more damage to a battery at that top end than if you're just kind of keeping it around. They love to be at a state of charge at 50%. Also, storing a battery at 100% state of charge for any significant length of time will also degrade the battery. That is something to consider. So manufacturers, a lot of them have built-in circuitry which will slowly bleed a battery down at 100% state of charge so that it is not sat there without any chemical reaction taking place, which is a bad state for a lithium-ion battery to be in. So the first strategy is about managing your state of charge, looking after the battery, ensuring that you're not going above 85% if you don't need to. That covers that. Strategy number two is kind of linked with strategy number three, right, which is the wallet and the sanity of other EV drivers. So we're going to cover this in one long topic, and it's important because we're going to use real science and real data for this topic. Now, this data was very kindly provided by an active contributor into the Porsche Taycan community who wants to remain anonymous, so big thanks to them. They know who they are. But they used an app called Ionity to log the state of charge during a session of the Taycan battery. There's also an app for the brand that begins with T called Teslafy that provides good third-party data here as well. But here is the really important thing. We're going to be talking, as I mentioned at the top of this video, about DC charging only, and specifically very fast DC charging. The Taycan can accept charge at a maximum of 270 kilowatts, which is insane, but it can't do that all the way from 0 to 100%. And if you look at this data here that has been very kindly provided by this contributor, you'll see here that this charge session goes from 30% to 90% at the top end, which is about an average looking after your battery charging session, right? And the lithium-ion battery in the Taycan, when it's low, can accept a significant amount of charge. It can take that 250, 270 kilowatts, depending on where you are, and also depending on a few other factors like the temperature of the battery. But generally, if you've got a low state of charge, it'll take that charge very easily, right? But look here at what happens when you get to about 70% state of charge. The rate of charge really tanks off significantly. It really starts to fall down. So you're just not being able to pump the juice in as quickly. And we only get to 90% or 91% in this graph here, right? But I know from my own experiments as well that if you get to sort of 95, 96, 97%, the rate of charge then tails off really significantly. I've seen it go as low as just 1 kilowatt towards the very end of a 100% charging session, which I did some time ago. So that rate of charge really tails off. And why is this important? Well, this is where this important bit about looking after your wallet and looking after the sanity of other EV drivers really starts to play true. And this is why it's important, because if you're on a journey and you're charging as you go and you need to top up, should you be taking it right up to 100% so you can get as much out of that journey as possible? Well, obviously, you know, the journey needs to be considered, but if you don't need to, you should absolutely be disconnecting that DC charger when you get to sort of 80, 85%. Because if you want to get any higher than that, you're going to be sat there at that charger for a significant amount of time to get from 80 to 90 and then to 100%, probably 40 minutes or so, even at a 350 kilowatt charger, because that rate of charge really tails off, right? So you're effectively causing a queue for people that can jump on. What you should be doing, what the strategy here is just taking it from as low as it is to about 80, 85% and then moving on. This gives other people the chance to jump on. And if everybody did this, if everybody stuck to this kind of rule, you know, as soon as they see their charge really tail off, they think, oh, you know what, I'm gonna leave this one and then I'm gonna get to the next charger. If I can allow that, if my journey will allow that, I'm going to do that. That's the right thing to do. The other thing to consider here is if you are on a charger that also has a standing charge, a per minute charge, as well as that kilowatt hour charge, right? This is the wallet part. Now, if you're on an Ionity charge, it's the best way to charge a Porsche. If you're on the Porsche charging service contract, it's brilliant, quite frankly. I love it. 30p per kilowatt hour, and that's it. You can sit there for as long as you like, and that's all you pay. No time charge, but please do be considerate to other users, right, who might want to jump on. You don't need to take it to 100%. So that is really nice to have, the Ionity charger. But if you're at anything else, then you will be affected, even on the Porsche charging service, by that per minute charging cost, right? That per minute charging cost. So at a Porsche charger, you will get stung for that. If you turn up at a Porsche dealer and use their charger, you're going to get stung by that per minute cost. And it can be as much as 44p per minute. What does that mean? Well, it's fine if you're pumping in 250 kilowatts lower down the range you can. But as soon as you get above that and the charge rate slows down significantly, it really affects the total cost you're paying per kilowatt hour. Now, I've seen places, I've seen garages, Shell garages specifically, where they're charging £1.20 per kilowatt, which is ridiculous. And I can't actually advise getting an EV if you had to pay that. It's just stupid. So, you know, a full tank of juice, you're probably looking at 120 quid, which is just crazy. But there's no standing per minute charge for those. But on the Porsche charging service contract, you are eligible for a per minute charge if you're using their service, right? So what does that actually mean from a cost perspective, the wallet perspective? So if you're charging at just 10 kilowatt per hour on a standing charge of 44p per minute, I've kind of worked out roughly that you're going to be spending the equivalent of £2.60 per kilowatt to get that juice into your car. And if you're dropping down to just 1 kilowatt towards the end, it's the equivalent of about 26 quid per kilowatt hour, which is ridiculous. So if you're on a standing charge, if you are looking at a standing charge, per minute charger, you're stood there and you're on one, you really need to be considerate of that charge and really considerate of the rate you're getting out of your charge. Now, you know, I would say my advice here would be, as soon as you kind of drop down to below 100 kilowatt, I'd look to just get off one of those chargers as quickly as possible, because you see the rate tail off significantly and you're just going to be spending per minute and really not getting good bang for kilowatt hour buck, right, which is important. You know, we always like to look after our purse strings as much as possible. I mean, the key thing is here, spending more than you should. I mean, yeah, I'm sat in a very rapidly depreciating Taycan, right, which I love, but it's probably not the most financially sensible buy. But I think the key thing here is not paying more than you should for what should be available at a reasonable cost, i.e. electricity, right? So you just need to be a little bit intelligent about managing the charge and working with it to get the best out of it. That's the key thing here. So I really wanted to cover it in this video, and a huge thanks to the active contributor in the Taycan community that wanted to remain anonymous. Great data. Really do appreciate the support there for this video. And yeah, the moral of the story is, watch that charging rate. Thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good one. See you on the next one. Bye for now.